YouTube, in my last video, we were concerning ourselves with a concert hall that had 25 seats in the first row and then one more seat in every row after that. So essentially we say 25 seats in the first row, the next row would have 26, the next row would have 27, and the next row would have 28, and so on and so forth. And we were told that there are 32 rows of seats total. So essentially what we're saying is we have this concert hall, and this isn't a very good illustration of it, but we'd say, we have our first row, second row, third row, and so on and so forth, all the way out to the 32nd row. So we had identified that this really is just an arithmetic sequence. And the reason being is because there are 25 seats in the first row, 26 in the next, 27 in the next, 28 in the next, so on and so forth, all the way out to the 32nd row, which I do believe, we do have a rule for this, and so I kind of kept it here. We say AN, this represents the rule for the number of seats in the nth row. If I wanted to know how many seats are in this 32nd row, I suppose we could say, well, then A32 would be equal to N plus 24, where in this case our N is 32. So just in case you're curious, there are 56 seats in this last row right there. Okay, so what I want to do in this video, as a matter of fact, is find the total number of seats in this concert hall. And as a matter of fact, the total number of seats in this concert hall, we could find this by finding the sum of the first 32 terms, or all 32 terms, or all 32 rows of this concert hall right here. We do have a rule, as a matter of fact, for the sum of an arithmetic series, and it is this. We say the sum of the first n terms of something that's arithmetic is equal to n, which represents the number of terms we have, times, now in parentheses, the average of the first and last term. So in this case, when we say what is the total number of seats in this concert hall, really what we're trying to find is this, the sum of the number of seats in the first 32 rows. Okay, so in this case, we know that n is 32. That's kind of a nice thing to know. And we know the value of our first term, or at least the number of seats in the first row, is 25. Okay, that's what we were told here. The question is, well, then how many seats would be in the last row, or AN? In this case, since n is 32, what we need to find is A32. And actually, we did go ahead and find A32 is 56. We found that over here. So what we're going to do is use this to our advantage here and go determine, well, then how many seats must be in this concert hall? Well, we've got this. We say, all right, n times the average of the first and last term, where n is 32. There are 25 seats in the first row. There are 56 seats in the last row. We need to average those. So cleaning this up a bit, we get 32 times all over 2. We get 25 plus 56 would be 70, 81. So we get 81 over 2. So I'm actually, for the sake of convenience here, going to pull out a calculator. And we say, all right, well, if we took 81 divided by 2, and then we take that times 32, we determine that there must be 1,296 seats here. So 1,296. I'm going to write this here. We say seats, and I'll write even in parentheses here, total. We were finding the sum of all of those, okay? So now the question becomes this. Suppose 12 more rows of seats are built where each row has one more seat than the row before it. It says how many additional seats would the concert hall have, okay? So I'm asking how many more seats would it have than it currently has, which, by the way, this is 1,296. So if we were to add on, let's think about this. If we were to add on 12 more rows of seats, okay, then how many total rows would there be? Well, I know that there are 32 rows in the first place, so if we were to add on 12 more rows, we would come up with 44 total rows to begin with. So really, if I wanted to find the total here, here's going to be my plan. Why don't we go ahead and find the total of the first 44 rows, if there were hypothetically 44 rows. And what we'll do is we will subtract off the sum of the first 32 rows. That is, we'll take off, if you were to look at this image up here, if we were to add on, say these other 12 rows here, we'll take the total of all of this right here, and we'll subtract off the total of the first 32 rows. And what that should do is leave us behind with the number of rows left over. So if this is what we're trying to find, the good news is we already know S32. The question really becomes then, what is the sum of the first 44 rows if they did exist? So let's go ahead and find this here. We say S44. We would need to know n. In this case, n would be 44. And we still have the value of our first row, or the number of seats in the first row is 25. What we don't know is the value of A44. We're going to need that for our arithmetic series sum here. So we say A44. We do have a rule for this. Recall that AN, or the number of seats in the nth row, is n plus 24. So we say that A44 would be n plus 44 plus another 24 here. So we say the value of A44 comes out to be 44 plus 24 is 68. So the sum of the first 44 rows would be this. We would say the number of rows times the average of the first and last row seats. We say 25 plus 40, oh sorry, not 44, but 68. 68 seats in that 44th row. We say there are 44 total rows. So again, we could use a calculator on this one. There's no problem doing that. We say 25 plus 68. We'll divide this by 2, and we'll take that times 44. And what we end up with here is 2046. So let's just put it this way. If you were to have 44 rows total, you would have 2,046 seats in the entire thing. So if we know there are 2,046 seats in the entire thing hypothetically, but just in this first part up here, we were able to determine, first of all, there were 1,296. If I'm trying to find this leftover, this part from right here to here, what we could do is, our plan was to take the number of seats in 44 rows, which is 2046, and subtract off the number of seats in the first 32 rows, is 1,296. And so again, calculator, whatever, we say 2046 minus 1296, and we get 750. So we could answer this question here. We would say that there would be 750 additional seats in this concert hall. Cheers.